We continue the Gospel of Nicodemus, formerly known as the Acts of Pontius Pilate, with chapter 5:7. And now let this man go, because the very miracles for which ye accuse him are from God, and he is not worthy of death. My stomach is grumbling something fierce here, which maybe you can't hear, I don't know. The Jews then said to Nicodemus, Art thou become his disciple, and making speeches in his favor? Nicodemus said to them, Is the governor become his disciple also, and does he make speeches for him? Did not Caesar place him in that high post? When the Jews heard this, they trembled, and gnashed their teeth at Nicodemus, and said to him, Mayest thou receive his doctrine for truth, and have thy lot with Christ? Nicodemus replied, Amen. I will receive his doctrine, and my lot with him, as ye have said. Then another certain Jew rose up, and desired to leave of the governor, and to hear him a few words. And the governor said, Speak what thou hast a mind. And when he said, I lay for 38 years by the sheep pool at Jerusalem, laboring under a great infirmity, and waiting for a cure which be wrought by the coming of an angel, who at a certain time troubled the water, and whosoever first, after the troubling of the water, stopped in, was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And when Jesus saw me languishing there, he said to me, Wilt thou be made whole? And I answered, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. And he said unto me, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And I was immediately made whole, and took my bed, and walked. And the Jews then said to Pilate, Our Lord Governor, pray ask him what day it was on which he was cured of his infirmity. Sorry to speak about infirmities, and I'm not upset to the stomach too much or something. The infirm person replied, It was on the Sabbath. The Jews said to Pilate, Did we not say that he wrought his cures on the Sabbath, and cast out devils by the prince of devils? Then another certain Jew came forth and said, I was blind, could hear sounds, but could not see anyone. And as Jesus was going along, I heard the multitudes passing by, and I asked what was there. They told me that Jesus was passing by. Then I cried out, saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And he stood still and commanded that I should be brought to him, and said to me, What wilt thou? I said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. He said to me, Receive thy sight. And presently I saw, and followed him, rejoicing and giving thanks. Another Jew also came forth and said, I was a leper, and he cured me by his word, only saying, I will, be thou clean. And presently I was cleansed from my leprosy. And another Jew came forth and said, I was crooked, and he made me straight by his word. And a certain woman named Veronica said, I was afflicted with an issue of blood 12 years, and I touched the hem of his garments, and presently the issue of my blood stopped. The Jews then said, We have a law that a woman shall not be allowed as an evidence. And after other things, another Jew said, I saw Jesus invited to a wedding with his disciples, and there was a want of wine in Cana of Galilee. And when the wine was all drank, he commanded the servants that they should fix all 6 pots, which were there, with water. And they filled them up to the brim, and they blessed them, and turned the water into wine. And all the people drank, being surprised at this miracle. And another Jew stood forth and said, I saw Jesus teaching in the synagogue at Capernaum, and there was in the synagogue a certain man who had a devil, and he cried out, saying, Let me alone. What have we to do with thee, Jesus of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know that thou art the Holy One of God. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, Hold thy peace, unclean spirit, and come out of the man. And presently he came out of him, and did not at all hurt him. The following things were also said by a Pharisee. I saw that a great company came to Jesus from Galilee, and Judea, and the seacoast, and many countries about Jordan, and many infirm persons came to him, and he healed them all. And they heard the unclean spirits crying out and saying, Thou art the Son of God. And Jesus strictly charged them that they should not make him known. After this, another person whose name was Centurio said, I saw Jesus in Capernaum, and I entreated him, saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home, sick of the palsy. And Jesus said to me, I will come and cure him. But I said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but only speak the word, and my servant shall be healed. And Jesus said unto me, Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And my servant was healed from that same hour. Then a certain nobleman said, I had a son in Capernaum, who lay at the point of death. And when I heard that Jesus was come into Galilee, I went and besought him that he would come down to my house and heal my son, for he was at the point of death. And he said to me, Go thy way, thy son liveth. And my son was cured from that hour. Besides these, also many others of the Jews, both men and women, cried out and said, He is truly the Son of God, which is a title that in the Bible they use for prophets, who cures all diseases only by his word, and to whom the devils are altogether subject. Some of them further said, This power can proceed from none but God. Pilate said to the Jews, Why are not the devils subject to your doctors? Some of them said, The power subjecting devils cannot proceed but from God. But others said to Pilate that he had raised Lazarus from the dead, after he had been 4 days in the grave. The governor, hearing this, trembling, said to the multitude of the Jews, What will it profit you to shed innocent blood? Chapter 6. Pilate, dismayed by the turbulence of the Jews, 5, who demanded Barabbas to be released, and Christ to be crucified. Barabbas, of course, is one of the 4 hysterical characters that made it into the Jesus story. The writer of a book that was later changed into what we now know as the Book of Revelation, but it's pretty much the same text being rewritten at the end of a century instead of the beginning of a century, but, the first century, the Common Era. Nine, Pilate warmly expostulates with them. 20, washes his hands of Christ's blood. 23, and sentences him to be whipped and crucified. Then Pilate, having called together Nicodemus and the 15 men who said that Jesus was not born through fornication, said to them, What shall I do, seeing there is like to be a tumult among the people? They said unto them, We know not. Let them look to it who raised the tumult. Pilate then called the multitude again, and said to them, Ye know that ye have a custom that I should release to you one prisoner at the feast of the Passover. I have a noted prisoner, a murderer, who is called Barabbas, and Jesus who is called Christ, in whom I find nothing that deserves death. Which of them, therefore, have you a mind that I should release to you? They all cry out and say, Release to us Barabbas. Pilate saith to them, What then shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? They all answer, Let him be crucified. Again they cry out and say to Pilate, You are not the friend of Caesar, if you release this man, for he hath declared that he is the Son of God, and a king. But you are inclined that he should be king, and not Caesar. Then Pilate, filled with anger, said to them, Your nation hath always been seditious, and you are always against those who have been serviceable to you. The Jews replied, Who are those who have been serviceable to us? Well, they're talking on behalf of the priesthood, not the people at large, right? Pilate answered them, Your God delivered you from the hard bondage of the Egyptians, and brought you over the Red Sea, as though it had been dry land. Well, it was this sea of reeds, so the tide moved, and fed you in the wilderness with manna, and the flesh of quails, and brought water out of the rock, and gave you a law from heaven. Ye provoked him all ways, and desired for yourselves a molten calf, and worshipped it, and sacrificed to it, and said, These are thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. On account of which your God was inclined to destroy you, but Moses interceded for you, and your God heard him and forgave your iniquity. Afterwards, you were enraged against and would have killed your prophets Moses and Aaron, whom, when they fled to the tabernacle, and ye were always murmuring against God and his prophets, and arising from his judgment seat, he would have gone out. But the Jews all cried out, We acknowledge Caesar to be king, and not Jesus. Whereas this person, as soon as he was born, the wise men came and offered gifts unto him, which, when Herod heard, he was exceedingly troubled, and would have killed him. When his father knew this, he fled with him, and his mother, Mary, into Egypt. Herod, when he heard he was born, would have slain him, and accordingly sent and slew all the children which were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under. When Pilate heard this account, he was afraid, and commanding silence among the people, who made a noise, he said to Jesus, Art thou therefore a king? All the Jews replied to Pilate, He is the very person whom Herod sought to have slain. Then Pilate, taking water, washed his hands before the people, and said, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. Look ye to it. The Jews answered and said, His blood be upon us and our children. Then Pilate commanded Jesus to be brought before him, and spake to him in the following words, Thy own nation hath charged thee as making thyself a king. Wherefore I, Pilate, sentence thee to be whipped according to the laws of former governors, and that thou be the first bound, then hanged upon a cross, in that place where thou art now a prisoner, and also 2 criminals with thee, whose names are Nicodemus and Justus. Chapter 7, the manner of Christ's crucifixion with the 2 thieves. And we see here the birth of Christ from painting on wood by Frater Filippo Lippi, and the murder of the innocents from a painting on wood by Matteo de Giovanni. Then Jesus went out of the hall, and the 2 thieves with him. And when they came to the place which is called Golgotha, they stripped him of his raiment, and girt him about with a linen cloth, and put a crown of thorns upon his head, and put a reed in his hand. And in like manner did they to the 2 thieves which were crucified with him, Didymus on his right hand, and Augustus on his left. But Jesus said, My Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they divided his garments upon the vesture, they cast lots. The people in the meantime stood by, and the chief priests and elders of the Jews mocked him, saying, He saved others. Let him now save himself, if he can. If he be the Son of God, let him now come down from the cross. The soldiers also mocked him, and taking vinegar and gall, offered it to him to drink, and said to him, If thou art the King of the Jews, deliver thyself. Then Longinus, a certain soldier, taking a spear, pierced his side, and presently there came forth blood and water. And Pilate wrote the title upon the cross in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek characters, viz., This is the King of the Jews. But one of the two thieves who were crucified with Jesus, whose name was Justus, said to Jesus, If thou art the Christ, deliver thyself and us. But the thief who was crucified on his right hand, whose name was Nicodemus, answering, rebuked him and said, Dost not thou fear God, who art condemned to this punishment? We indeed receive rightly and justly the demerit of our actions, but this Jesus, what evil hath he done? After this groaning he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. Jesus answering said to him, Verily I say unto thee, that this day thou shalt be with me in paradise. Chapter 8, Miraculous Appearance at his death. 1. 10. The Jews say the eclipse was natural. 12. Joseph of Arimathea embalms Christ's body and buries it. And it was about the 6th hour, and the darkness was upon the face of the whole earth until the 9th hour. And when the sun was eclipsed, behold, the veil of the temple was rent from the top to the bottom, and the rocks also were rent, and the graves opened, and many bodies of saints which slept arose. By the way, none of that stuff's historical, but and about the 9th hour, well, the eclipse, sure, but about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Holy, holy, lama, heli, or halai, lama sabachthani, which being interpreted is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Slachthanu would be forgiven lamah, for what? Alhi, lamah sabachthanu, which, yeah, my God, God, yes, but why hast thou forsaken me? No, that's not there. And those aren't the words of even a believer, much less Christ or prophet figure. And after these things, Jesus said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said this, he gave up the ghost. And when the centurion saw that Jesus thus crying out gave up the ghost, he glorified God and said, Of a truth, this was a just man. And when all the people who stood by were exceedingly troubled at the sight, and reflecting upon what had passed, smote upon their breast, and then returned to the city of Jerusalem. The centurion went to the governor and related to him all that had passed. And when he had heard all these things, he was exceedingly sorrowful. And calling the Jews together, said to them, Have ye seen the miracle of the sun's eclipse, and the other things which came to pass while Jesus was dying? Which, when the Jews heard, they answered to the governor, The eclipse of the sun had happened according to its usual custom. But all who were the acquaintances of Christ stood at a distance, as did the women who had followed Jesus from Galilee, observing all these things. And, behold, a certain man of Arimathea, named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus, but not openly so for fear of the Jews, came to the governor, and entreated the governor that he would give him leave to take the body of Jesus from the cross. And the governor gave him leave, and